Saudi Arabia. There are still people, the majority on the stage, they want to topple Assad. And then there'll be chaos, and I think ISIS is going to be in charge.
Senator, we're going to talk about regime change in a bit, but Governor Kasich, would you like to respond to Senator Paul?
Yeah, let me just suggest to everybody, and I hear, last February, I said we needed to have people on the ground in a coalition with Europe and our allies. This is not going to get done just by working with the Sunnis, and it is not going to get done if we just embed a few people. We have to go massively like we did in the first Gulf War, where we destroyed Saddam's ability to take Kuwait. That will stand for nothing less than the total destruction of ISIS, and we have to be the leader. We can't wait for anybody else. I served on the Armed Services Committee for 18 years, and we must lead, or the job won't get done, unfortunately, for our country.
Thank you very much.
To provide more than what they're doing now. There's no doubt about it. There's one major reason why they have not been willing to be a broader part of the coalition, and that is they have lost complete trust and confidence in this president. This president cut a deal with their mortal enemy, the Shia in Iran. And this is the reason why they no longer trust this president and are willing to work alongside him. But they have as much vested in this as we do, in fact, more so. For it is the king of Saudi Arabia they want to behead first. It's the king of Jordan that they want to dethrone. It's that they want to go into Egypt. That's the way they've already gotten into Libya. And on another point we need to talk about, Assad is one of the main reasons why ISIS even exists to begin with. Assad is a puppet of Iran. And he has been so brutal towards the Sunnis within Syria that he created the space that led for the people of Syria themselves to stand up and try to overthrow him. That led to the chaos, which allowed ISIS to come in and take advantage of that situation and grow more powerful. And the fact that this president left from behind meant there were no alternative groups on the ground to be empowered, leaving ISIS the prime operating space they needed to become the force they have now become.
Thank you very much. I'll stand by. Mr. Urena. The former Defense Secretary Bob Gates says the chances of getting Sunni Arab forces on the ground to get the job done, his words, chances very remote. What's your strategy?
Well, first I'll just point out that talking tough is not the same as being strong. And to wage war, we need a commander-in-chief who has made tough calls in tough times and stood up to be held accountable over and over, not first-term senators who never made an executive decision in their life. One of the things I would immediately do, in addition to defeating them here at home, is bring back the warrior class, Petraeus, McChrystal, Mattis, Keene, Flynn. Every single one of these generals I know, every one was retired early because they told President Obama things that he didn't want to hear. We must have Sunni Arabs involved in this coalition. We must commit leadership, strength, support, and resolve. I'll just add that Margaret Thatcher once said, if you want something talked about, ask the man. If you want something done, ask the woman.
When you listen to this stuff and you think that so many of these people have had so much to do in this national debate, they talk like they were bystanders. You know, we talk about our military being degraded over time, and yet we've had folks in the stage who've been a part of Congress who have participated in sequester, who participated in the degrading of this military over time. And that's why I think people get so frustrated with Washington, D.C. now. That's why they're so angry with, and that's why I think people get so frustrated with Washington, D.C. now. That's why they're so angry with the elected, so angry with everybody who's involved in government in Washington, D.C. Because if you listen to the folks up here, you would think that they weren't even there. They had nothing to do with this. This is the difference between being a governor and being in a legislature. See, because when something doesn't work in New Jersey, they look at me. Say, why didn't we get done? Why didn't we do it? We have to be responsible and accountable. And so on ISIS, let's be clear. The president needs to be a force that is trusted in the world. And on this, I agree with Mark. You know, this president's not trusted. If you're the king of Jordan, if you're in the royal family of Saudi Arabia, and he's made this deal with Iran, which gives him $150 billion to wage a war and try to extend their empire across the Middle East, why would you want to do it now? But I will tell you this, when I stand across from King Hussein in Jordan, I say to him, you have a friend again, sir, who will stand with you to fight this fight. He'll change his mind.
Dr. Carson, what's your strategy?
I've been talking about this for over a year. We have to destroy their caliphate because that gives them legitimacy to go ahead We have to take their energy because ISIS is the richest terrorist organization there is. Take their oil, shut down all the mechanisms whereby they can disperse money because they go after disaffected individuals from all over the place, and they are able to pay them. That makes a difference. As far as the command centers are concerned, in Raqqa and to a lesser degree in Mosul, cut those off. Do the same kind of thing that we did with Sinjar a few weeks ago, working with our embedded special forces, with the Kurds, shut off the supply route, soften them up, then we go in with special ops followed by our Air Force to take them over. Those are things that work. But also, this whole concept of boots on the ground, we've got a phobia about boots on the ground. If our military experts say we need boots on the ground, we should put boots on the ground and recognize there will be boots on the ground, and they'll be over here, and they'll be their boots if we don't get them out of there now.
Thank you. Everyone stand by.
A terrorist war zone run by jihadists. Move over to Egypt. Once again, the Obama administration, encouraged by Republicans, toppled Mubarak, who has been a reliable ally of the United States, of Israel, and in its place, Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood came in, a terrorist organization. And we need to learn from history. These same leaders, Obama, Clinton, and far too many Republicans, want to topple Assad. Assad is a bad man. Gaddafi was a bad man. Mubarak had a terrible human rights record, but they were assisting us, at least Gaddafi and Mubarak, in fighting radical Islamic terrorism. If we topple Assad, the result will be ISIS will take over Syria, and it will worsen U.S. national security interests. And the approach, instead of being a Woodrow Wilson democracy promoter, we ought to hunt down our enemies and kill ISIS rather than creating opportunities for ISIS to take control.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Senator Rubio. You support
Revolt against Gaddafi was not started by the United States. It was started by the Libyan people. And the reason why I argue we need to get involved is because he was going to go one way or the other. And my argument for them was proven true. And that is the longer that civil war took, the more militias would be formed, and the more unstable the country would be after the fact. As far as Muammar Gaddafi is concerned, by the way, Muammar Gaddafi is the man that killed those Americans over Lockwood, Scotland. Muammar Gaddafi is also the man that bombed that cafe in Berlin and killed those Marines. And you want to know why Muammar Gaddafi started cooperating on his nuclear program? Because he got rid of Saddam Hussein. And so he got scared that he would be next, and that's why he started cooperating. Look, we will have to work around the world with less than ideal governments. The government in Saudi Arabia is not a democracy, but we will have to work with them. The government in Jordan is not perfect, but we will have to work with them. But anti-American dictators like Assad, who helped Hezbollah, who helped get those IEDs into Iraq, if they go, I will not shed a tear.
Senator Cruz.
Hearing from President Obama and Hillary Clinton and Washington Republicans that they're searching for these mythical moderate rebels. It's like a purple unicorn. They never exist. These moderate rebels end up being jihadists. And I'll tell you whose view on Assad is the same as mine. It's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said Israel doesn't have a dog in that fight because Assad is a puppet of Iran, a Shia radical Islamic terrorist, but at the same time, Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't want to see Syria governed by ISIS, and we need to focus on American interests, not global aspirations.
Everybody stand by for another comment. We want to prevent Iran being able to extend a Shia crescent all across the Middle East. Assad's got to go, and there are moderates there. There are moderates in Syria who we should be supporting. I do not support a civil war. I don't want to be policemen of the world, but we can't back off of this. And let me tell you, at the end, the Saudis have agreed to put together a coalition inside of Syria to stabilize that country.
In my opinion, we've spent $4 trillion trying to topple various people that, frankly, if they were there and if we could have spent that $4 trillion in the United States to fix our roads, our bridges, and all of the other problems, our airports, and all of the other problems we have, we would have been a lot better off. I can tell you that right now. We have done a tremendous disservice, not only to the Middle East, we've done a tremendous disservice to humanity. The people that have been killed, the people that have been wiped away, And for what? It's not like we had victory. It's a mess. The Middle East is totally destabilized, a total and complete mess. I wish we had the $4 trillion or $5 trillion. I wish it was spent right here in the United States on our schools, hospitals, roads, airports, and everything else that are all falling apart.
That's exactly what's a Republican presidential candidate. But let's just start with who got it wrong. Who really got it wrong? Hillary Clinton has gotten every foreign policy challenge wrong. And didn't she reset button with Vladimir Putin? Recall that she called Bashar al-Assad a positive reformer, and then she opened an embassy. And then later she said over and over and over again, Bashar al-Assad must go, although she wasn't prepared to do anything about it. Recall that Hillary Clinton was all for toppling Muammar Gaddafi, then didn't listen to her own people on the ground. And of course, when she lied about the terrorist attack in Benghazi, she invited more terrorist attacks.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Well, there's nothing to respond to. People feel differently. I mean, the fact is Benghazi was a disaster because of Libya. Everything just fell into place. It could not have been worse. What do we have now? We have nothing. We've spent $3 trillion and probably much more. They have no idea what we spent. Thousands and thousands of lives. We have nothing. Wounded warriors all over the place who I love. We have nothing for it. And by the way, and Ben said incorrectly, and I'm not saying this is a knock, this is one of the finest men. You're not going to find a finer man. But I've been talking about oil for 3 years. I've been saying, take the oil, take the oil. I didn't say just buy it. I said take it and use it and distribute it so that the wounded warriors and people. But I've been saying this now for many years. Now all of a sudden everybody's saying take the oil. It wasn't so fashionable to take the oil 6 months ago. I've been saying it for years. Dr. Pershing.
No one is ever better off with dictators, but there comes a time, when you're on an airplane, they always say, in case of an emergency, oxygen mask will drop down, put yours on first, and then administer help to your neighbor. We need oxygen right now. And we need to start thinking about the needs of the American people before we go and try to solve everybody else's problems. The fact of the matter is the Middle East has been in turmoil for thousands of years. For us to think that we're going to go in there and fix that with a couple of little bombs and a few little declarations is relatively foolish.
Lessons learned are that we have to have a strategy to get in and a strategy to get out, which means that you create a stable situation. This president, and this is what the focus ought to be, it's not the differences between us. It's Barack Obama does not believe America's leadership in the world is a force for good. He does not believe that our strength is a place where security can take place. He leads from behind. He creates an environment that now we're creating the most unstable situation we've had since the World War II era. The focus ought to be on the simple fact that Hillary Clinton wants to double down on a failed foreign policy, and we need to be united to defeat that, because we're going to be in a place that's far less secure than it is today.
I don't think because I think the regime change was a bad idea, it means that Hussein was necessarily a good idea. There's often variations of evil on both sides of the war. What we have to decide is whether or not regime change is a good idea. It's what the neoconservatives have wanted. It's what the vast majority of those on the stage want. They still want regime change. They want it in Syria. They wanted it in Iraq. They wanted it in Libya. It has not worked.
Mr. Assad staying in power, but you're also in favor of winning. If he stays in power, Iran is winning. Hezbollah is winning. Iran is winning in Yemen. They are winning everywhere. If they're winning, how can we be winning?
I think Assad is a bad guy, very bad guy, all right? Lots of people killed. I think we're backing people we have no idea who they are. The rebels, we call them the rebels, the patriotic rebels. We have no idea. A lot of people think that they're ISIS. We have to do one thing at a time. We can't be fighting ISIS and fighting Assad. Assad is fighting ISIS. He's fighting ISIS. Russia's fighting now ISIS. And Iran is fighting ISIS. We have to do one thing at a time. We can't go, and I watch Lindsey Graham. He said, I've been here for 10 years fighting. Well, he'll be here with that thinking for another 50 years. He won't be able to solve the problem. We have to get rid of ISIS first. After we get rid of ISIS, we'll start thinking about it. But we can't be fighting Assad. And when you're fighting Assad, you're fighting Russia, you're fighting a lot of different groups. But we can't be fighting everybody at one time.
Democracy is reform theory.
Assad and his Iranian sponsors have rained down on the Sunnis in Syria. And so when we empower Iran, this is why this president, and when Hillary Clinton says her theory against ISIS will be just about the same as the president, they get ready for more unrest and more murder and more violence.